Hello, students. Today we will revise whatever you have learned till now and move ahead with the first chapter, that is, how do plants make their food. So, a little revision. These are the parts of a plant, the basic parts of a plant. You have the roots, the leaves, the stem, you have flowers, and the fruit, right? So, children, most of the living things, be it human beings, birds, fishes, animals, be it domestic animals, be it insects or wild animals, all move from one place to another in search of food. But have you seen plants moving from one place to another? No, right? So, how do you think they get their food? How are they able to grow? How do they get the energy? Yes, so plants are able to make their own food. Animals move from one place to another in search of food, whereas plants cannot move from one place to another in search of food. That is why they have to prepare their own food. Now, just like how we prepare our food in the kitchen, you will find all the important ingredients in the kitchen, right? Do you cook in the dining room? Or do you cook in the drawing room? Or in the bedroom? No, right? The kitchen is where the food is cooked, where you find all the necessary grocery items. Yes? Similarly, plants also have a kitchen, and that is the leaves. So plants prepare their food in the leaves. That is why leaves are also known as kitchen of the plant or food factory. Clear? Leaves are also known as kitchen of the plant or food factory. Mouth watering, right? Who doesn't like chaat and pani puri? I love it. So if I keep looking at these ingredients right now, will I get pani puri or will I get chaat like in a puff like a magic? No, right? I have to prepare it. Similarly, what is this? These are the ingredients and this is my food, that is dal. Okay, so if I keep looking at the ingredients, will it naturally be converted into dal? No, right? It has to go through a process of cooking. Either I have to uh, Either I have to use gas stove for fire or I will make use of wood for fire. Yes, but either way, I have to cook the food, cook the ingredients to make it like this, to prepare my food. Yes, similarly, even plants have certain ingredients and they have a process to make their food. All right, just like how we have ingredients and we make use of the process called cooking, similarly, plants also have a process. Let us see. Yeah, so just like how we had ingredients, plants also have ingredients. Their basic ingredients are water and carbon dioxide. Okay, and their food is glucose, that is a form of sugar. All right, so and the process that they use to prepare their food is known as photosynthesis. So their ingredients are water and carbon dioxide, and their food is glucose. And the process that they use to convert these ingredients into food is known as photosynthesis. This is the process. Just like how we had cooking, plants have photosynthesis. And just like how cooking cannot be done without fire, photosynthesis cannot be done without light, sunlight. All right. So, sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water will give glucose and oxygen on the process of photosynthesis. So children, when your mother prepares food in the kitchen, have you seen smoke coming out? When the food gets very hot, we see smoke come out. Yes, similarly, when plants prepare their food, they also give out oxygen. Clear? Will you remember this? So in this picture you can see from where the plant gets all its raw material. Water comes from the ground, gets absorbed by the roots, reaches the leaves. Yes, carbon dioxide is found in the atmosphere, so it is absorbed by or through exchange of gases, it is collected in the leaves. Similarly, sunlight is absorbed by the leaves and food is prepared in the leaves and oxygen is given out during the process of photosynthesis, right? So what is photosynthesis? The process by which leaves prepare food using water, minerals, carbon dioxide. Minerals are also found in the soil. Okay, so water, minerals, carbon dioxide in the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight is called photosynthesis. Again, the process by which leaves prepare food using water, minerals, carbon dioxide in the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight is called photosynthesis. Now, what is chlorophyll? So, children, if I take a very small part of the green of any green leaf, okay, and put it under the microscope will help me see things that my naked eye that I cannot see with my eyes. Okay, very minute and minutest of things can be seen through with the help of microscope. So when I put a small part of the leaf under the microscope, I will see something like this. Okay, can you see these green dots or circles? Yes, they are pigments. All right, they are a color. They are known as chlorophyll. They are green pigments. They give the plant the green color and allow the sunlight to be absorbed. Okay, so what does chlorophyll do? They help the leaves to absorb sunlight, not only leaves, even the stem. So they help the plant to absorb sunlight. So what does chlorophyll do? It gives green color to the plant and allows the plant to absorb light. Okay, so understood now why chlorophyll is so important for the process of photosynthesis. So water plus carbon dioxide in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. Why chlorophyll? Because chlorophyll is required to absorb sunlight. Without chlorophyll, the plant will not be able to absorb sunlight. So in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll will give you sugar and oxygen. Oxygen is given out and sugar is your is the plant food. Okay, now leaves are of different size, shape and color. We can see over here they are all of different colors, and green leaves we have already seen. Yes, so that means since their leaves are colorful, that means that they will not have chlorophyll in them, so they will not be able to prepare their own food. Clear? Only plants with green leaves are able to prepare their own food. The reason is chlorophyll. With the help of chlorophyll, only with the help of chlorophyll, the plant is able to absorb the sunlight. Okay, and without sunlight, photosynthesis is not possible. So photosynthesis is not possible in plants which have colored leaves. Clear? Now we come to the structure of a leaf. Now even though leaves are of different shape and size and color, they all have some common features. So this is what a leaf looks like, and it can be divided into two regions. From base to the tip is one region. Okay, and from base to the end that attaches to the stem, this end will be attached to the main stem of the plant. Okay, so yes, so it can be divided into two regions. This is one region and this is the second region. So this flat part of the leaf is called the leaf lamina or the leaf blade. Okay, and most of the photosynthesis will occur in this region, especially the lower side of the leaf. All right, so the leaf has two sides, one that faces up and the surface that faces down, right? So the lower surface of the leaf will be undergoing photosynthesis. So remember, most of the photosynthesis occurs in the leaf lamina, also known as leaf blade. Clear? So this is the leaf stalk. Okay, basically its function are that it attaches the leaf, okay, the leaf lamina to the main stem. Yes, and it also helps in transportation. It brings whatever water is absorbed from the roots and is passing through the stem. From the stem it will bring the water to the leaves. Similarly, whatever food is being prepared in the leaves, it will carry the food from the leaves through the stalk and it will transfer it to the stem. The stem will then distribute the food to different parts of the plant. Clear? So this is the leaf stalk. It attaches the lamina to the main stem and transports water from the stem to the lamina, and similarly food from the lamina to the stem. Why does lamina need water? It needs water for photosynthesis. Clear? Now you can see over here, this is a huge tall sunflower, and when I zoom in you can see over here, this is the leaf lamina and this is the leaf stalk. You can see that the leaf stalk is attaching the leaf lamina to the main stem. Yes, this is the main stem. It is attaching the lamina to the main stem. So children, I told you that most of the photosynthesis will occur in the lamina region of the plant. Yes, so it will occur here, everywhere on the lamina it is going to occur, the photosynthesis. Clear? Now whatever the food is being prepared, how does it reach the stalk? Yes, it reaches with the help of these. You can see this connection over here. Okay, these are called veins. All right, all the veins are attaching themselves first to this vein and then these veins are getting attached to this main single vein, right? So this thin tube like structure, yes, can you see it? This thin tube like structure that is passing through the middle of the leaf lamina is called the midrib or the mid vein. What does it do? It provides support to the leaf. All right, otherwise without it the leaf will start drooling. Okay, so it provides support to the leaf, then it transports water to all parts of the leaf. Can you see from the mid vein you can see these branches coming out, and from the branches you can see these different branches coming out. Yes, and from the different branches also you can see these tiny small branches coming out, right? Yeah, so water comes from the roots to the stem, then through the leaf stalk it will reach the mid vein, and mid vein is then distributing through its branches water all to the leaf lamina, all over the leaf lamina. Clear? So it transports water to all parts of the leaf. Also, with the help of the same branches, it will collect the food prepared and transport it through the stalk and the stalk will be attached to the stem, and with that and in that way the food is distributed to all the other parts of the plant. Clear? So this is the midrib in the center. It is more clear over here. You can see that this is the stalk, and in the center there is a tube like structure. This is the midvein. Clear? And then it has these branches, and on a closer look you can see that it is a big network, right? From these side branches you have very small other branches coming out, and they are all interlinked to each other. Yes, these branches, okay, from the mid vein or the mid rib are called side veins. So what do the side veins do? They provide shape to the leaf, they provide a structure to the leaf, and they also help in transportation. Whatever food is collected made over here, with the help of these branches it will reach the side vein, and from the side vein it will reach the midrib, from the midrib it will reach the stalk, from the stalk to the stem, and then to the other parts of the plant. Yes, similarly water from the stem comes to the stalk, from the stalk will come to the midrib, from the midrib it will be transferred to the side veins, and from the side veins to different parts of the leaf. Yes, so the side veins have two functions. One is to provide shape and support to the leaf, and second is to it helps in transportation of water to the leaf and food from the leaf to different parts of the plant. Understood? Please take another close look. This is the midrib. This big tube, thick tube like structure is the midrib, and from this thick tube you can see many small thin tube like structures arising. These are the side veins. Okay, they help in transportation of food from the different parts of the leaves. Okay, the food will come to the side veins, and through the side veins it will come in the mid vein or the midrib, and from the midrib it will be carried down to the stalk, leaf stalk, and from the leaf stalk it will reach the stem. Similarly, water from the stem will enter the leaf stalk, from the leaf stalk it will come to the midrib, and from the midrib it will go into the side veins. Through the side veins it will be given to different parts of the leaf. Why does leaf need water? Water is required for photosynthesis. Understood? So now this is a zoomed in version of a leaf. You can see this is the midrib, then these are the side veins, and you can see the network over here. Yes? And this is how water and food are distributed or collected respectively. Now if I take this small part of the leaf and put it under the microscope, I am going to see something like this. Okay, can you see? I am going to see something like this. We can see the network also over here. If you pay little close attention, can you see these lines? Yes, these are the network created by the side veins. Yes, the small branches from the side veins. Yes, can you see this? Yeah. So these are the network thin tube-like structures, small tiny thin tube-like structures arising from the side veins. Yes, and these dark green spots are called as stomata. So these green spots are known as stomata. If I zoom in to this a little bit more, I am going to see something like this. Alright, so you can see this black part that you can see are the openings. Okay, they are spaces. Alright, so one single cell is known as stoma. Plural is stomata, singular is stoma, and you can also see these circles. Yes, they show the chlorophyll. Okay, So you can see here we have many stomatas, alright, and beside them we have the green pigment used to absorb the sunlight. Yes, these small tiny circles that you can see over here are the green pigment chlorophyll, which are essential to absorb sunlight. So stomata are small pores or openings that help in exchange of gases. Also, they are present more on the lower side of the leaf. Okay, so the leaf has an upper side and the lower side, so they are present more on the lower side of the leaf. All right, now just like how you need to breathe to live, similarly even plants need to go through some exchange of gases to live, all right, or to survive, and the stomata helps them in just doing that. Clear? So just like how when you breathe, yeah, so when you take a deep breath in, can you see that your chest increases in size? It expands, right? And similarly, when you breathe out, your chest is going to decrease in size. It is going to contract. The same thing happens in plants also. So these stomatas that you can see over here, the stoma over here, you can see they act like lungs for the plants. And just like how your lungs increase and decrease in size as you breathe, similarly the stoma will also expand and contract when the leaf breathes. Okay, let us see. So you can see here this is a stoma, and see how it is opening and closing. Let me show it to you again. See how it opens and closes. Opens, closes. Okay, so you just saw how these stomatas will open and close. Okay, and when they open and close, the space, this black space, expands and then contracts, and this will help in the process of exchange of gases, and in that way even oxygen is given out from these small tiny pores, and extra water that is collected is also given out through these tiny pores. So what is stomata? Stomata singular is stoma. It is a tiny opening or pore on the surface of the leaf. It is found more on the lower side of the leaf. Okay, so present on the lower side of the leaf, helps in exchange of gas, that is it helps in breathing, it helps in photosynthesis, it helps to give out oxygen and water vapor, and it also helps in excretion. Now excretion, so whatever waste is collected in the plants is given out through these tiny pores. So children, in the morning when you get up, and if you have plants at home, observe the leaves of the plants at least for a week. Okay, continuously early in the morning, you will see tiny drops of water collected on the leaves. Clear? Like either it will look like this or it will look like this. This is excess of water, okay, or waste that is collected is given out in the form of water, and it is done with the help of these openings or pores called stomata. Now, the last common feature in plants, in the leaves, is the chlorophyll. Most, if the leaf is green in color, it is definitely going to have chlorophyll pigment. But in some colorful leaves, okay, there will be parts where the leaf might be partly green, partially green, or there might be spots of green. So in those green spots there will be chlorophyll present. Okay, so until and unless the entire leaf is of different color, the leaf will be able to prepare some food for itself, and it will be able to absorb sunlight with the help of chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is a green color pigment that gives green color to the plant and allows the plant to absorb sunlight, therefore helping in the process of photosynthesis. And now this is Motu and Patlu. Yes, most of you are fans of these cartoons. Yes, so Patlu is one thin cartoon, whereas Motu is one little chubby cartoon. So obviously we know that Motu eats a lot, right? And whatever extra food that he is eating gets collected in his big stomach in the form of fat. Similarly, when plants prepare extra food, they store it in the form of starch. Okay, so extra food in plants gets converted into starch and is stored in different parts of the plant, like roots, stem, leaves, fruits, flowers and seeds, and we eat all of them. All right, wherever starch gets stored, okay, those parts of plants we eat. Let's see. Now, if the extra food that is prepared is converted into starch and is stored in the roots, okay, so the examples are beetroot, radish, that is mooli, then carrot, that is gajar, and turnip, okay. Similarly, if the extra food is stored in stem, example are potato and onion. If it is stored in leaves, examples are spinach, lettuce and cabbage. When you touch these leaves, you will feel that they are very comparatively very thick as compared to the other normal leaves. Then we have fruits. They are starch rich fruits like watermelon, you have muskmelon, then all the berries and cherries, apple, pears, etc. Now, extra food when stored in flowers. The example are cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli. Cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli. And when stored in seeds, you must have seen peas, then you have cereals like wheat, corn, rice, and then pulses like rajma, lobia, chole, dal, etc. Right? So you should at least learn 2 to 3 examples of each. Okay, any 2 to 3 examples, and you must remember them. Now, how are we dependent on plants? Yes, we are dependent on plants for oxygen. When we breathe in, yes, take a deep breath in. Yes, when you breathe in, you require oxygen. Yes, so when you take in the air goes into your lungs will absorb the oxygen, and when you breathe out, carbon dioxide will come out. Yes, so that carbon dioxide is taken by the plant, okay, and the plant is then giving out oxygen. In the process of photosynthesis, oxygen is given out, which is a necessity or an essential requirement for all living things. Clear? To breathe, all right, you require oxygen. Then they provide us with shelter. Many animals live on the trees like monkeys, squirrels. Yes, many of them live on the trees. Not only that, we also require wood to make houses. So in that way, the plants are indirectly helping us to provide ourselves with shelter. Similarly, food. Now, there are some animals that directly depend on the plants like deer, goat, all these herbivorous animals that eat only plants. Yes, they directly eat the plants like giraffe, then cow, buffalo. They require plants for their food. And even the omnivorous animals that eat both plants and meat, okay, or carnivorous animals that eat only meat require plant for energy. Let us see how. So these are examples of three food chains. So you can see the leaves of the tree is eaten by the deer. Okay, so energy is being transferred to deer. When the lion hunts and kills the deer, that energy is getting transferred to lion. Clear? Similarly, butterflies feed on flowers. All right, so energy is being given to butterflies or flies. Then the butterfly is being eaten by the frog. All right, so now the energy is being given to the frog. The frog is then eaten by the snake, so energy is getting transferred again. And from the then the snake is eaten by the eagle, so energy is getting transferred to the eagle. So indirectly, all these carnivorous animals are eating the plants. Okay, they are getting their energy from the plants, right? So animals, including human beings, are dependent on plants for three things, that is oxygen, shelter and food. Clear? These are the basic three things: oxygen, shelter and food. Now, just like how we need plants, plants also need or are dependent on animals in some way or the other. Let us see how. So, plants are dependent on animals for carbon dioxide. Just like how when we breathe in, we are taking in oxygen. Yes, and when we breathe out, we give carbon dioxide, which is a requirement for the plants. So, plants depend on animals for carbon dioxide. They depend on animals for nutrients. When a living thing or an animal dies, yes, it gets mixed in the soil. All right, the body gets broken down into tiny pieces and gets mixed in the soil from and that nourishes the soil. That is how the plant is able to absorb the nutrients from the soil. So whenever an animal dies, it gets broken down into very small pieces. The body gets broken down into very small pieces. The bacteria and the worms inside the soil help in this breakdown, and then that is how the body gets mixed with the soil, and then it nourishes the soil, and these nutrients are then absorbed by the roots of the plant. So plant depends on animals for nutrients. Then it also depends on animals for the dispersal of seeds. So what happens is that the seeds get attached to the fur or coat of the animals, and then when the animals move from one place to another, the seed goes along with them, and when they shake or shake themselves, the seeds will get shed over there. So then from the seeds a new plant will come. Yes, so that is how the seeds get dispersed, and that is how you see the same type of plant growing in different areas. Okay, so plants are dependent on animals for three things, that is carbon dioxide, nutrients and then dispersal of seeds. So now you know that as much as plants need animals, animals also need plants. Yes, and this relationship between plants and animals is known as interdependence of plants and animals. Clear? They both cannot survive without each other. Just like a jigsaw puzzle, each piece is important, right? Without without any one of them, the entire puzzle is going to be incomplete. Similarly, plants also are incomplete without animals, and animals are incomplete without plants. Now, different places on earth have different types of climate, right? Some areas will be very cold, some areas will be very hot, some will be moderate, some will be humid. So depending on the climatic conditions and the surrounding, plants have to modify themselves to adapt to the surroundings to survive in that area. Clear? Let us see some examples. Now, cactus usually grows in desert areas, yes, where there is water scarcity. Okay, that is, water is not available easily. So that is why this plant has gone through certain modifications, such as it has wide spread roots. All right, so wherever there is little water, the roots will be able to absorb it from there. So it has widespread roots. Then it has spikes. The leaves of the plant have been converted into thorns or spikes. All right, this is to decrease the surface area, and that is how evaporation of water is prevented. Clear? I'll show you what that means. Let's look at the next point first. Then they have large fleshy stem. You can see over here what thick stems do they have, right? Such thick stems. Yes, fleshy stem. Why? Because when you cut a cactus, you will see a nice jelly like substance filled inside it. Okay, so it has large fleshy stems, and then it has a thick waxy skin. First of all, the layers, that is the skin of the plant, the green part, is very thick. All right, again, to prevent evaporation, excess of evaporation of water because of the heat. Okay, and waxy means it will be little like gluey, or it might have a gluey layer on top. That is again to prevent excess loss of water. Now I told you about surface area, right? How the what does the cactus do to decrease the surface area? It has converted its leaves, okay, into small thorns. All right, so let's see how what happens with increase or decrease in surface area. Now what is happening in this video is that they have taken two tumblers. One is a glass, okay, and one is a big tumbler, okay, and same amount of water is filled in either of them, and they are kept in the sun. Even you can try this at home. You can fill a glass of water, and you can fill another tumbler which is quite large, like this, maybe a pan or a big plate, okay, and you can fill that with water, equal amount of water, and put it in the sun for a few days, maybe till the water evaporates, okay, from any one of them first. And you will notice that water in the big tumbler will get evaporated first. Let us see. So did you see that water level in this decreased first? Why? Because this is a larger tumbler. Yes, and if water evaporates fast from the plate. Why? Because it has large surface area. Whereas the glass doesn't have a large surface area, so water is still in there. So even you can do this experiment at home. You can take a glass, you can take a large plate, and you can fill equal amount of water in both of them and keep it out in hot sun for maybe an hour or two, and then later on go and see from which tumbler more water has been evaporated. Okay. So did you understand, when the surface area is large, water will evaporate faster, and this is how cactus is able to sustain or survive in the desert areas. It has converted its leaves into these small tiny spikes. Yes, they also act as a protection. They also provide protection to the plants because otherwise they can be eaten by animals. Yes, so to prevent that also, the spikes help. Now these are also a type of plants, different though. So you can see that they are not green. One is mushroom and the other is molds. Okay, so they don't have green, they are not green in color, and they don't have leaves that are green, so they are not able to undergo photosynthesis and make their own food. So how do they survive? So they obtain their nutrition from the dead or decaying plants and animals. Yes. So in case of molds, what happens is, you must have seen them in breads. When the bread gets stale, you can see molds developing in them. They secrete juice which breaks down the plant or animal body, and that is how it then absorbs nutrition from them. And in case of mushrooms, mushrooms break down the dead animal or the decaying animal or plant, okay, outside their body, and then they absorb it and get their nutrition. Clear? So mushrooms and molds survive on dead and decaying plants and animals. So this is a croton plant, and you can see that some of the leaves are colorful, some are green, and some, even though if they have green color, in between they have some different color. Yes. So this plant, I told you earlier that some plants or some leaves that are colorful may have some green parts in between them, and that will contain those parts of the leaf will contain chlorophyll. So that is how they will be able to prepare their own food, and croton is an example of that. And the other leaves, okay, so help them in attracting birds and animals, and that is how they attract other beings towards them for the dispersal of seeds. Okay, so when you take a small part of the leaf and put it under the microscope, you are going to see something like this. Now I don't think the picture is very clear, but you can still make out that there are green pigments, there are purple, red pigments. Yes, so green pigments show presence of chlorophyll. So that is why this plant is able to make its own food even though it has different colored leaves. Now till now we studied about the plants that are somehow able to make their own food. Yes. Now we are going to study about plants that do not make their own food. Now, first is parasitic plants. Okay, now from the word parasite, you must understand that it means that something that grows on other plants or animals. Clear? So, there are parasitic plants. And the parasitic plants are divided into two types. One is total parasite and then partial parasite. Okay, so what are total parasites? Total parasites are parasitic plants that are completely dependent on their host. Okay, and they do not undergo photosynthesis. Now what is a host? I will tell you. And then we have partial parasites. Partial parasites are parasitic plants, are plants that prepare some food through photosynthesis and derive nutrition from the host plant. Clear? So this is a parasitic plant called Cuscuta or dodder. Now you can see over here, this is one plant that has wrapped itself around another plant, and this green stem is of the main plant. Okay, and that is the host plant, the one from which the nutrition is being absorbed is the host plant. Clear? And the one which is absorbing all the nutrition is the parasitic plant. So it looks like this, and on a close look it will look like this. It wraps around the stems of the main plant, and it has a special organ which the cuscuta or dodder has a special organ which will penetrate inside the stem, and from there it will take the nutrition required for itself. So you can see it a little bit more clearly over here. This is the host plant, the stem of the host plant, and this golden yellow plant. Okay, it has no roots and it is not green in color, so it cannot prepare its own food. So it is totally dependent on the host plant for food and energy and nutrients. Okay, so yes. So cuscuta or dodder plant, so it does not have roots or leaves. It is a golden yellow plant. We can see it over here. It is a golden yellow plant, has a specific organ that penetrates into the stem of the host plant. This is the host plant, the one which is providing all the nutrition. Okay, so that is why this is how the cuscuta or dodder is entirely completely dependent on the host plant. That is why it is a total parasitic plant. Clear? Another example of a parasitic plant is the mistletoe. This is the mistletoe and this tree is the host. Alright, the mistletoe is going to derive its nutrition from the host, that is the tree. Now you can see that the mistletoe has green leaves. That means that it has chlorophyll, and so it can prepare its own food. Clear? So the mistletoe is usually found to be growing on the barks or trunks of trees. They can undergo photosynthesis. Why? Because they have green leaves. So they can prepare their own food. Alright, so they are dependent on the host plant only for water and nutrients. Clear? They can prepare their own food, but water and nutrients they absorb from the host plant. That is why they are called partial parasites. Alright. Now you must be wondering how this plant, which is a parasitic plant, reached that to this so high up in on the tree. Yes. So what happens is this is the mistletoe fruit, okay, and the birds come to eat the mistletoe fruit, all right, and when they finish eating the fruit, the seeds in the fruit have this gluey thing, okay, in them, which is very sticky. So this sticky part of the seeds gets attached or gets stuck to the beaks of the bird, all right, and then the bird goes and rubs its beak against the trunk of a tree, all right, to clean its beak, and that is how the seed then goes and gets attached to the trunk of the tree. Clear? So you understood now how this seed is getting dispersed and how did the mistletoe reach so up on the tree? Yes, so that is with the help of the birds. Now another type of plant or a category of plants which cannot prepare their own food are insectivorous plants, okay, and by the name only you can guess that they feed on insects. Plants that eat insects are called insectivorous plants. So here you can see different insectivorous plants. Now you must be wondering that ma'am said that when a plant is green in color, it means that it has chlorophyll, and chlorophyll, with the help of chlorophyll, the plants will able to undergo photosynthesis and prepare their own food, right? So yes, you are right. These plants also prepare food with the help of photosynthesis, but they grow in soil that is so poor in nutrition and that it has to trap insects and then absorb nutrition from their body. Okay, so insectivorous plants, they eat insects. They are able to prepare their own food. Why? Because they have green leaves, and with the help of green leaves they can undergo photosynthesis and prepare their own food. But they grow in soil that is not rich in nutrients and therefore trap insects and absorb nutrients from their body. So you can see here, this is the pitcher plant, then we have the Venus flytrap, and then you have the sundew as an example of insectivorous plants. Now let's see how they catch their prey. So this is the Venus flytrap, and with the help of these colors it is able to attract different types of flies. See how it is catching its prey. So it catches the fly, okay, it closes the mouth and it catches the fly, and then it secretes a juice which then kills the fly, and then it is able to break it down and digest the nutrition from it. Now this is the pitcher plant. The pitcher plant is a funnel shaped plant, okay, and it has a lid on top, and inside the funnel, it has a very greasy coating. So whenever a fly or any insect goes and sits on the inside part of this funnel shape, it is going to slide down, and down there it has nectar which attracts all these insects and small birds. So this is what a pitcher plant looks like. It has a long funnel shaped tube like structure, and down below it has nectar. So when the insects or small tiny animals come and sit over here, the inside coating is little greasy, so they slip down, or sometimes they even travel down for the nectar, and that is how the plant is able to trap them. See, it's not getting grip because the inside part is little greasy, and that is how they slip down. And it is so slippery inside that it is not able to come outside. So this is how the pitcher plant is able to catch its prey, because it has a greasy coating on the inside and it has nectar down below inside the tube like structure, so it attracts these insects and small birds, and when they go in search of nectar they go inside it, and then they are not able to come out because the inside part or the inside walls of this pitcher plant is very slippery. Okay, and then the pitcher, once the insect or the prey is trapped inside the funnel, the plant is then going to secrete a juice and kill the animals and the animal or insect, and then it is able to absorb nutrition from their body. Now our next example is the sundew. The sundew has these transparent sticky ball like glue like thing uh, which when comes in contact with the insect, the insect gets stuck onto the plant. So you can see how these thread like structures are moving towards the insect and trapping it more and more. Also you can see the plant has started bending. And then it is going to roll this insect, and that is how then it is going to secrete a juice, and the insect is then going to die, and then the plant is going to absorb its nutrition from it. So you saw how different insectivorous plants trap their prey, and that is all about this today's lesson. I hope the lesson was clear to you and that you have understood well. In case of any doubts, please do not hesitate to ask.